Normally he's here in person, but it being Thanksgiving week, he is Zooming in from The Athletic and Fox Sports in his weekly Wednesday appearance. The man known by the NCAA as Uncle B. Bruce Feldman here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Uncle B? You good?
I'm doing well. I have a question for you.
Okay.
I actually have a question for the people in the studio with you.
Yes, sir.
Who do we think wins the 40 race, Barkley or Rich?
Barkley Briggs of Davidson football, or me.
Beats Rich by like a second, probably.
I think he wins, Bruce, and he's invited. Is this the greatest farewell to college announcement you've ever seen, Bruce? This kid?
It might be. Look, I'm guessing Barkley Briggs will have a future in some form of media or entertainment because he's clearly got a good sense of humor about himself. There'll be a place for him.
Yeah, maybe he'll provide the motor for Bussin' with the Boys. Maybe he'll do that.
I actually thought it was Jason Kelsey at first.
I know,
like an old Cincinnati photo.
All right, let's jump into it, Bruce. Why haven't we heard anything on the Michigan ticket scandal for like 5 days? Are we done hearing information? Is everybody like zipping it because there's a game coming up? Why aren't we hearing anything?
I think so. Look, I think everybody got their pound of flesh. Jim Harbaugh is not going to be coaching in this game. And Tony Petitti and the Big Ten have moved on for the time being. And now we're going to have the game. And it's going to be nasty, right? Can't wait to get to Ann Arbor tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving. Yeah. Yep. I'm going there tomorrow. There's been so much buildup, and now we actually have it. Right. Sharon Moore is going to be coaching Michigan, not Jim Harbaugh. But right now, Jim Harbaugh is coaching them, at least until game day. And I think all the other stuff that's around the game is still going to be around the game. But for now, we're going to find out, is Michigan actually better than them?
So, again, you're saying everybody's gotten their pound of flesh. So there's nothing left to leak. You know what I mean? I'm being serious here, and I know that sounds like
Well,
I'm grinding an axe here, but
there's a lot of stuff that people still want to know. Certainly, I mean, I think on the Michigan side, they want to know, where did this investigative, firm show up from? Who tipped them off? I think we all want to know also, not just did who at Michigan else might have known about what was going on. There's a lot more detailed stuff that the NCAA is certainly going to be digging into. But for now, in terms of the back and forth courtroom drama, I think that has been on the shelf at least, right? Once Michigan decided, hey, we're good, we'll accept the suspension from the Big Ten, and the Big Ten's gonna let the NCAA handle the rest of it for this point forward. I think that's what the Big Ten coaches, I think, we're pushing for. I'm sure the ones who had to play Jim Harbaugh on Saturday as opposed to, the way the suspensions worked, I think those people probably aren't thrilled. And certainly it's not like there's going to be a lot of people who are going to say, look, for 2 years, this we felt was against the rules, the spirit of the rules. And that those outcomes are real. You can't change those. But at this point, what else can you do going forward?
So what's your 2 cents on the actual game? Since we're arriving there and the drip has stopped, and leakers are zipping their lips, or there's nothing else to report. What do you got for me now Toe's about to meet ball on Saturday, Bruce?
Yeah, I still think that everybody who's on the Michigan sideline is convinced that they are the tougher, more physical team than their arch rival. I know it. I know that's what they think because I was behind the bench when Mike Sanderstill and Barrett were rallying their teammates. They're convinced, and they feel like they have their own video evidence. They saw it last year, like in the second half of that game. Now it's on Ohio State to be more ready and to look. They're really talented. They have Travion Henderson back. He wasn't healthy in midseason. He sure looked healthy last week against Minnesota. Kyle McCord is a really young quarterback who's been in some tough spots this season, but this is going to be a different animal going into that snake pit that Ann Arbor is going to be, after all this, especially against a really talented defense with probably a better defensive line than what Michigan had last year. So, JJ McCarthy didn't look to be at his best last week. Maybe Maryland was a trap game, You know, it was back-to-back road games. It was all the drama around Jim Harbaugh, whether he's going to be there or not, and all the stuff. You know, now J.J. McCarthy, to me, has a significant advantage at quarterback. Last year, I wouldn't have said that because you had C.J. Stroud there. Now you have a guy in McCourt who's making his first start in this game. Now, he definitely has great receivers and really good skill talent. I don't know if his offensive line, though, I don't think it's as good as the one they had last year with a couple of NFL offensive tackles. And it was just a more seasoned group. This group has had some good moments and it's had some not so good moments. But to me, that I think is where the game is. It's really is, you know, Michigan's offensive line, which has been so good, you know, was a little banged up last week, but we're going to see, is Michigan in the trenches dominate this game, or does Ohio State hold its own? And if it does, then I definitely think Ohio State has the skill guys to win this game.
Well, yeah. And so that, you know, from my seat, my concern, Bruce, is the Michigan run game this year has not been its forte. It really has not been. Corum scores from the 5-yard in, right? From the 5-yard line in, he's been money there. But, you know, between the 20s, it's been a bit of a struggle to get a run game going. And the, you know, outside of the obvious of trying to contain Marvin Harrison Jr., the concern I have is McCarthy, who hasn't looked himself the last 2 weeks. I'm wondering if he's hurt. Is that why Sharon Moore called, you know, a zillion straight run plays in Penn State? And he did not look himself in Maryland at all. And if there's anybody who misses Harbaugh in game, it would have to be McCarthy. His spirit animal is not on the sideline, right? So that's my concern.
Yeah, and I think it's a valid concern. Now, look, the first I was in at that Penn State game, Michigan's right tackle was in for a long day. Penn State has super edge rushers, super twitchy guys. Mm-hmm. Chop Robinson, most notable among them. They are different. You know, Ohio State has really good defensive linemen too, especially on the outside. They're different though. They're bigger guys. They're still really athletic, but they're not Chop Robinson, and that was a big problem for Michigan's right tackles in the first quarter. And at that point, Sharon Moore just said, "Hey, we're just gonna bully this team," and they pretty much were able to do it. And for everything, you know, our Joel Klatt had said, you know, during the broadcast, J.J. McCarthy was the one leading the bandwagon on, hey, let's just lean on them. Now, later in that game, he did look hobbled. He did look hobbled with his leg, and he didn't look 100% last week. You know, going into that game, though, it was interesting because you talked to coaches in the Big Ten and they were like, JJ wasn't running as much before. And they were like, okay, are they trying to preserve him from steering clear of the risk of injury, knowing we have that if we need it? Now, I don't know if he's, you know, if his wheels are 100% like they were, we think, going into the Penn State game. He didn't look it coming out of it. So I think they're going to need that, though, because he is a playmaker, and they do have some really good weapons outside. I think this is a group that is better than what they had coming in to this game last year. But the run game has been a little muted, and we all know that they are going to be challenged at offensive line. That's the group that has to win it for Michigan. Because if not, if it gets into a game where it's like our Marvin Harris, you know, like Ohio State's receivers just better than them. Abuka's really good. Their tight end is really good, Cade Stover, and obviously they have the best receiver in college football, in Marvin Harrison Jr. As good as Michigan's secondary is, I don't think they're going to be able to completely shut that group down. Ohio State's just too explosive, and that's not even talking about what Travion gives them.
Bruce Feldman here from The Athletic and Fox Sports, heading to Ann Arbor later this week for the big game on Fox, big noon game on Fox on Saturday, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. The College Football Playoff Committee spat out a different quartet. Is it just as simple that Jordan Travis is gone from Florida State, and that's why they're no longer 4, and it's Washington in there, Bruce?
I think it has they'll say, Boo Corrigan, the committee chair, will say that it's some of the resume stuff where it balances out now that there's more results. Ultimately, I think that is the thing that has got to be your biggest concern if you're a Florida State fan. You know, Tate Rodemaker, it did lead them to a comeback win when Travis got hurt last year against Louisville. by all accounts, people have a lot of confidence in him, but he's not the guy that led one of the more prolific offenses in the country. They still have all the skill guys. I think they're still really talented. Florida's banged up. Florida's not with their starting quarterback this week in that rivalry game. But then Louisville is a really good team. They've had a really good year. I think Jeff Brom's done a terrific job in year one there. If you look at Florida State, if they get through Louisville and they get through Florida, I don't know how without their starting quarterback, how the committee could put them in a precarious position where it's still not good enough. Remember, they smashed LSU in the opener. It wasn't even close.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, I think they outscored them 31-0. I get it. It's not their fault that the ACC is very shaky outside of them, but they've won all their games. They scheduled a legit SEC opponent, and it wasn't close. So I think if you're Florida State, backup quarterback or not, you keep winning, you're going to have a place in the playoff, but it probably will be number 4.
So how does the, Pac-12 championship game or how does it affect anything, right? Big Ten championship game. It does just kind of feel like this is the moment, right? This weekend is the results oriented, or Alabama beating Georgia. Would that shake anything up? Like, give me the seismic moments here over the next 10 days, Bruce.
Well, we're probably not going to get everybody to be undefeated that's still undefeated, right? I mean, so start with the Pac-12. Now, let's say Washington gets through the Apple Cup, Oregon gets through against a good Oregon State team. Yeah. Then can Oregon avenge that defeat? If they can't, and you're Washington, you've beat Oregon twice, you have some other good wins. There's no way you're getting left out, right? Yeah. Then let's just assume that the winner of Ohio State, Michigan is not going to stumble in the Big Ten title game. So that's another one. That's 2. Then you're looking at, if Georgia holds serve, they're going to be the number 1 seed. But if Alabama knocks them off, you would have a 1-loss Alabama team with the best win of the season beating Georgia in the SEC title game. But they do have a head-to-head loss at home, no less, against Texas, and Texas handily beat them. Texas is in a much worse conference, at least for the time being, because they're not in the SEC yet. Right. But again, Texas does have a loss against Oklahoma, who, if at best, Oklahoma will be a 3-loss team if Texas gets to play them in the conference championship. It's not great. Like, if you're Texas, it's weird to think it, but you're in a really tricky spot there, because you're not going to overtake Georgia with 1 loss, absolutely. But I think there's not going to be an SEC champ if it's a 1-loss team that's getting left out. I just can't fathom that. It's just not what the committee does. And again, I think beating Georgia would carry so much weight. But then all of a sudden here, like, we're laying it out. If and it's a big if you have an undefeated Pac-12 champ, if you have an undefeated Big Ten champ, that's 2. If somehow Florida State makes it through, that's 3. Then something is, it's like it's the musical chairs game. Somebody's going to get left out that people are going to be incredulous about.
What's your opinion of the way Caleb Williams has finished up his season in USC and the conversation in college football about that, Bruce?
I think he's a remarkable talent. I think that program was sputtering all year, and a lot of it was blamed on the defense, and I think that was only a part of the problem. They fell apart down the stretch, and one of the things one of the lasting memories I think I'll have of this season is after the game a couple of weeks ago, Caleb jumps in the stands and is in his mom's arms, and she's covering his face. So you can see his body is shaking, and he appears to be sobbing. And for all, as great as he is as a talent, he won a Heisman and he's got a lot of NIL and a lot of other things. He's still a college kid, and you saw that. And there's a lot of stuff that gets attention. I know one of your colleagues had tweeted about how, he wasn't coming to, he turned down some media availability after games and everything like that. And people can read into all that stuff however they want to read into it. But, at the same time, I just feel like this was a program that was falling apart this year, and he was the face of it. And, maybe 5 years ago before NIL, we'd look at it differently. It's like, you feel like people are a lot less forgiving with this because they're like, oh, he's making a lot of money or he's doing commercials. And, I don't think I wouldn't knock him if I was an NFL team because he didn't come to I didn't decide he didn't want to come to a press conference.
Yeah,
or
right.
didn't.
Exactly.
It's like, I feel like that stuff now gets way overblown in social media. The thing I would be concerned about a little bit if I was an NFL team would be like, okay, has he picked up some bad habits and just trying to play Superman on every play? And if you can sit there and watch with him and say, okay, you know what, we still think he's incredibly talented. We think he's really bright. And we think all the things that from the people I know there, feel about him. I think he's still going to be the first pick. People can talk themselves out of it. It's not to say Drake May is not super talented, because I think he is too. But I just think with Caleb, he became a, kind of a target because for all sorts of reasons. I just think people were on Lincoln Riley's back almost from the time he left OU for the way he left it. It's only grown. And I think there's a part of this USC team which feels, more substance than style. And I think that's unfortunate for Caleb that, he's the face of it. But to me, I still think he's the guy who, if I was an NFL team, that would be the first pick of the draft.
No doubt. I mean, as I said on yesterday's show talking about it, Bruce, that any general manager that decides to not choose him because of these last two games and his comportment being questioned, if they pass up on him every single time Caleb wins and that general manager's team loses, he should be forced to have a press conference to talk about this very moment. I mean, it's nuts to me. Before I let you go, our friends at Yahoo talking about new revenue models being discussed by the higher ups in the NCAA world about the future of college athletics and needing to revenue share with players. Kevin White quoted as saying that the conversations being had are quote unquote nuclear, and how power schools might just leave the construct of current college football athletics and do their own thing. What do you think about that, Bruce? What do you think?
Yeah, shocking. I mean, I've talked to people in the sport, coaches especially, who are like, the NCAA model doesn't serve us well. It's outdated and all these other things. And revenue sharing from some of the coaches I've talked to feel like that would be a good part of it. I think we're headed to that.
Yeah.
I think it's probably in the best interest of major college football as it is to break away from the rest of the NCAA model. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who feel like the NCAA is rudderless and it's been outdated for a long time. I think that the sooner we have people like that who are quoted in that story, I think are putting their names to it, I think it only gives it that much more momentum, because those are people who have strong voices. And I think then all of a sudden everybody looks around and goes, let's find solutions instead of finding criticism. Because I think that's the part. And I'm not saying they're wrong to criticize it, but I think we're already past the criticism stage. I think we need to be at the solution stage. How do we work this out? How do we manage it? I know people don't love to say, oh, I don't want it to be like the NFL. The NFL, as you know, is wildly successful. There's parts of it that the college football can try to pattern itself, and other things that it can keep that the way it feels like it needs to be to run differently. But I feel like that's the stuff that they need to get going, because the sooner they do it, probably the better off it's going to be for the good of the sport.
Well, with Notre Dame's athletic director saying that, I hope nobody on the South Bend campus is buying hamburgers for anybody, because one particular coach who advocated for this sort of thing publicly has suddenly found the fury of the NCAA falling on his entire shoulders, Bruce. Didn't Jim say this? Didn't Jim say this? Didn't he say this?
Was it hamburgers or cheeseburgers? Hamburgers or cheeseburgers?
Okay. So finally, before I let you go, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being me being completely ecstatic, and 1 being me searching for a darkness retreat near Los Angeles, California, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 o'clock Pacific Saturday. What number am I? Bruce, what do you think? What's your prediction?
I think you're a 6.
Okay. Very few times will I say somebody tell me I'm a 6 that I don't take that as a complete insult, but I will accept it because that means I'm on the proper side.
You're in LA. You're fixed, man. How relative.
Bruce, have a great time at the game, man. I look forward to seeing you next week and picking your brain on everything. Thanks as always.
Thank you. Okay, take care.
The one and only Bruce Feldman, Fox Sports and The Athletic, here on The Rich Eisen Show. Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.